Thanks, guys. That's right. We've got Eric Kulisch on with us again this morning. He was on last week, typically comes and we chat a little bit about the air freight market. But today's big news, nothing to do with air freight, everything to do with FedEx. Eric, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's talk about this really kind of big story that's kind of blowing up right now on FreightWaves.com.
Yeah, well, it's as you know, FedEx has got lots of divisions, and everyone thinks about their parcel division, but they're also the largest less than truckload carrier in the U.S. or North America. FedEx Freight hauls a lot of industrial goods and e-commerce and other shipments for people, and they've been strained. The LTL market is just booming. They've had record metrics, as far as revenue and tonnage in the first quarter, and then continuing into the second quarter. So, it's all this pandemic-induced demand that we've all been talking about, but capacity is really fixed in the LTL market, and so FedEx is finding their terminals are pretty constrained. They're facing backlogs at some of their service centers on busy origin and destination lanes. So they are taking the move of chopping or cutting off a bunch of customer accounts to pare down how much volume they have now so they can get a handle on the situation. So we're reporting about 1,400 customers have been told as of today, we're not coming to pick up your freight. You'll have to find other means. And I'm guessing they're saying it's not permanent, it's until further notice. So, but the interesting thing about that is that it's not highly unusual for trucking companies to kind of preen or weed out some of their customers that are more expensive or less profitable. But the thing that's kind of unusual in this case is that how little notice was given. It was basically Friday afternoon, less than 24 hours notice as far as number of business days. Friday to Monday, you got a weekend in between. It's tough to find alternatives. So it's kind of leaving people in the lurch, like, my freight's going to be sitting on the dock for a long time.
And so when FedEx made this decision, they're kind of doing it to protect their service capabilities, right? Because they don't want to lose out on that time. They've got backlogs in their delivery network, all of that good stuff. But you have the people, the customers that they did this to, who were surprised on, the best side and just livid on the worst side. Do you think that it's better to make this decision to preserve your service capabilities while tarnishing your reputation by giving people so little notice? Or is FedEx kind of shooting themselves in the foot by doing this and kind of making an enemy out of these almost 1,400 customers?
That's a good question. Well, we'll have to see how it plays out. I mean, sometimes, maybe these customers will come back. They may not have another choice down the line, or, there'll be water under the bridge, but there could be some hurt feelings. I mean, I think the question is not so much that they are making a strategic decision or trying to become more efficient, because as I said, that's common in the industry and necessary at times, but it's the way you do it. So can you do it in a smart way, with pricing to raise your prices, and then, some people will look for alternatives that are cheaper, or you give people more notice, or you say, hey, we're going to cap our number of shipments next month, and then it gives people time to make alternative arrangements. But I think the thing here is it was just kind of the suddenness of it, and I'm not really sure why it was done that way. Maybe there's pressure within the company to get their margins and their yields higher, and get some of these delays down better. So, they had to, I guess the FedEx Freight folks might have thought they had to react quickly.
So, Eric, I think kind of on that same tone here with another question, do you think there are other companies that are standing to gain, I guess, from some of these, culling of customers here from FedEx? Do you think there are other companies that are kind of placed strategically to accept some of these and kind of pick some of these up?
In normal times, I would say yes. I don't know now how many of these companies will have the room or ability to do that, because they are, they're filled to the max themselves as well. They may not be having quite the same operational challenges, but there's so much volume, and these LTL networks are very fixed. It's tough to bring in a lot of assets or new drivers quickly. So, I don't know what their capability will be to absorb that. We'll have to see. I'm sure these companies are hoping that they can find someone, but I don't know. Will they have to, in some cases, pay for a full truckload to move something urgent, and even if they can't fill the whole thing? I mean, that might be an option. I don't know.
So let's talk about these companies that kind of received this cut from FedEx. I know that you reached out to a couple of them. Nobody got back to you in time for your story to publish. But is there any kind of uniformity between the types of companies, who it was, or was it really just all over the place? FedEx's decision to kind of just cut wasn't made with any type of uniformity around who they cut.
I can't say for sure. I haven't seen the entire list. Some of the companies we saw seemed to be like smaller to mid-size manufacturers. There was a few in the kind of medical device field. Companies that maybe you or I haven't heard of. So, like I said, mid-size manufacturers. But I think it runs the gamut. But I haven't seen the whole list, so I can't say for sure.
So Eric, maybe this might be a bit of a shot in the dark here, but this culling just happened. Do you think there's a chance, or have you seen this in the past, where maybe there's a second cut or an additional cut, maybe months or quarters later?
I guess it depends on where the congestion pops up in their network. If their things are fluid, then maybe not. But if certain traffic lanes get congested again, they may have to keep doing this because we're not really expecting any changes in the demand level through the rest of the year. Trucking volumes, ocean imports are coming in and very strong, and that's not expected to relent anytime soon. So, we could see some more of this strategically, where the congestion is the worst.
And so, Eric, your story mentions other LTL carriers like Old Dominion, ArcBest, and the growth that they've seen as well going forward. Do you think that they're going to see kind of what FedEx has done and almost take this as a learning lesson and say, okay, you know what? When we're selecting who we carry for, we're going to have to be a little bit more selective to make sure that we don't have to make these kind of cuts that FedEx did?
Yeah, I think, that's always, a lot of these carriers are strategic in their thinking. And so, I don't think this is necessarily going to be a precedent. I think, if they need to prune down their network or their customer accounts, they may do it a little more in an indirect fashion. Like I said, where they raise prices on certain customers or in certain areas pretty quickly or within a certain period, and that puts pressure on customers to fish or cut bait. So there's other ways that they might do similar things, but maybe not upset their customer base to the same degree.
So one of the other things that I love that was mentioned in your article was that shippers have elephant memories that they don't forget. Can you kind of expand a little bit more about this and how it might impact this whole situation?
I mean, I think, when you get burnt like this, it's possible that could stick with you for a while. But, one of the sources I spoke to seemed to think that that will stay with people for a while. Business is business, and, there's limited options. Like I said, down the road, some of them could come back if their network becomes more fluid and there's availability. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, and we'll try and talk to some of these customers in the days and weeks to come and see how that plays out.
Eric, I've got one more question for you here right now. And so we've talked about how a lot of this was driven by the volume and just the sheer amount of LTL freight that's coming in. But in your opinion, do you think that any of these decisions were made based off of the fact that FedEx has done such a big pivot when it comes to COVID relief and vaccine delivery and kind of putting that on the weight of that on their back to take care of this and really become one of the leaders when it comes to this relief delivery? Do you think that that has had any impact or any play in kind of taking up a lot of their network capacity, leading them to have to make these cuts on the other side?
I don't think so. I think a lot of the vaccine delivery is probably going on their parcel networks. FedEx Ground and FedEx Express by air. So, I don't know if some of the line haul, mix between FedEx Freight and FedEx Ground would have some vaccines in it, but it would be pretty small volume. So that's more of a parcel issue, and I don't think it would have involved FedEx Freight in this particular case.
Sounds like there's going to be a lot of busy brokers over the next couple of days.
Good
Eric, thank you so
point.
much for
Yeah.
joining us today. Last, but any other issue or areas that you're excited about, or maybe going to be touching on in the coming week here that we should keep an eye out for on FreightWaves.com?
Well, as going back to my air cargo routes, we're watching Air Canada today, which is a passenger airline. They're one of the few that are going into the all freighter business. They've converted a couple of their 767 planes, and today they're announcing they got the first two conversions and new freighter routes. So they're going to be like this hybrid airline with a freighter division and passenger airline, which is pretty neat. So we'll have more on that.
Going to be interesting to watch for sure. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Eric. That FedEx story is really, really deep and in depth. Go check that out on FreightWaves.com.